Welcome back, Frank.
How are you? Good
You're
to see
one
you.
busy dude, man.
Well, I try to get out there, keep it moving.
Before we talk about your new solo record, which I've been listening to a lot, Living Between the Lines, I wanted to ask you about a couple other things you had going on because they're really interesting to me. Like Fear, for example. What was it like working with Lee Ving, being on the road with Lee?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still doing it. We go out this weekend for some gigs. Um, I've been in it for about a year and a half now, and it's great. I'm a huge Fear fan. I mean, Fear's one of the first punk bands I really ever heard or got exposed to. Definitely first one that I went out and bought their album, the first album. And I'd seen them live over the years. The Cheetahs had played with them. We toured with them back in the late 90s, early 2000s. So there was a little bit of a relationship there, but it's awesome. I mean, we play, they're a legacy band, so we do a lot of big festivals and a lot of shows that are much bigger than I'm doing, in any of my other outfits. And I'm such a huge fan of Lee as a songwriter and as an actor because I'm a big movie buff and he's been
Yeah.
in a lot of great, great movies. So for me, the whole thing is it's just kind of an honor to be there.
Yeah, I got to work on the More Beer record when I was at Enigma. We put that out. That was a
Oh
while.
yeah.
That was
We're
like
doing we're doing the More Beer anniversary tour this year and playing the whole album top to bottom.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. 85 it came out, so 40 years.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's all.
Yeah. Yeah,
What
it's crazy.
about didn't you do some things with Handsome Dick Manitoba as well?
I'm also going out with him in the next week. Basically, this weekend I go out with Fear. I come back home for 2 days, and then I go out with Manitoba for about a week of Midwest stuff. I've known Manitoba for a long time, actually. I mean, almost 30 years. I met him in the mid 90s when I was a writer. I interviewed him for a New York magazine called Pop Smear, and I interviewed him for my Ramones book with Monty Melnick on the road with the Ramones. So I had met, Manitoba many times over the years, and I think the Cheetahs did some gigs and some festivals with them and stuff. And I knew Andy Chernoff and all those guys. But yeah, Manitoba's doing a solo tour, and he gave me the call and asked if I wanted to play guitar. I'm a huge fan of all that material. I love the Dictators, and I'm a big fan of Ross the Boss's guitar playing. So it was real fun for me. As someone that's influenced by him to kind of really get into that material and like learn it and kind of get a hold of it. So it's been awesome.
Man. And the last thing is the hip hop film Freestyle 101. You won an award for that, right?
Yeah, we just won Best Music Documentary at the Film Threat Award. Film Threat is a
Yeah,
magazine that when
love
I
it.
was in college, yeah, I had a subscription to it when I was in college. And we won Best Music Documentary, so that was an honor. The film is essentially the history of freestyle rap, and it kind of talks about, hip hop starting in New York and then kind of freestyling and going off the top starting kind of in LA, out of Leimert Park area. And then the battle rapping and stuff going on in New York, and we get into some of the stuff in between. Um, and so yeah, it's got it's narrated by Chuck D, it's got Ice-T, it's got MOP, it's got Mobb Deep, it's got Cypress Hill, Fat Joe, Dell. I mean, so many great artists in this. I was just lucky to have so many great artists that were willing to participate. And, this was a subject matter, telling hip hop history and treating it with a certain amount of respect and reverence for the art form that it is was something that meant a lot to these folks. And I was just very honored that they sort of trusted me to tell the story.
Yeah, and if you folks out there want to hear more about that, Frank and I did a whole episode on that about, I guess it must have been about a year ago. And
Yeah,
you
something like
can,
that.
yeah, it was really fun, and I learned a lot from talking to you about that, definitely. I just figured I'd mention these three things because you're so busy, man, and you have so many good things
Thanks,
going
man.
on. And I know there's probably a lot more too. So, um, this new album, Living Between the Lines, scheduled for, I guess, a couple weeks or maybe March 11th, something like that.
Yeah.
It represents a little shift for you, and you incorporate like blues, soul, pop. How did you approach this change, and what drew you to create a sound that's different from a lot of your more punk rock previous work?
Yeah, I think I think part of it was that because I've done a lot of records with the Streetwalking Cheetahs, and I have this band in Europe called Trading Aces that's kind of more of like a AC/DC hard rock kind of vibe. So I'm already, doing that. And the Cheetahs do this sort of revved up punk rock and roll thing. So I'm doing that over here. And then I work with artists like James Williamson of Iggy and the Stooges, or a heavy metal guy like Thor, and I get these, kind of songwriting tasks or collaborations with these guys. So if I was going to make a solo record, I didn't want any of it to sound like that
Yeah.
because I'm already doing all that stuff. So I'm a big Tom Petty fan, and I'm a big fan of soul music and blues, and I grew up on Stevie Ray Vaughan and Buddy Guy and Johnny Winter and all that stuff. And those are sides that you don't get a lot of in the projects I was just mentioning. So I kind of thought if I was going to do something that in general it would lean towards being a little rootsier and a little bluesier. And then I am always in any genre that I write in, I'm always looking for the best hook. I'm a big fan of pop hooks, but usually I'm writing these pop hooks in the context of these very revved up sort of chainsaw rock and roll, punk rock, heavy metal songs or context. With this record, I kind of wanted to really focus on like every song having the best, most memorable hooks, but these are not hard rock and roll songs for the most part. They're a little different textures, they're a little mellower, they're a little trippier, they're a little bit raw and emotional. So I think I kind of just really wanted there to be a personal level with this record too that maybe I wasn't doing in my other stuff. It was just the idea was for it to be different. And also, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm older now. I just kind of decided that it was my time to make that like, hey, listen to me. I'm a real songwriter record. Like this is what I can do. You know what I mean?
Did you learn a lot about yourself as an artist with this kind of a process?
I think there were some along the way. I gave myself kind of like some songwriting challenges
Uh-huh.
essentially, and they weren't necessarily intended for this record. It was just sort of as I was building up towards doing this. At one point I was like, I want to write something kind of like an Amy Winehouse thing, and I want to write something kind of like a Taylor Swift thing. And it wasn't like, I mean, there's no universe where I'm going to come off sounding like any of those artists. But I think as I was just listening to like pop music and just like what's getting played on the radio and what do you hear on satellite and listening to this stuff that's out of my wheelhouse, but is, obviously very beloved by, society. I kind of started as a songwriter thinking, well, what makes this stuff tick? And could I write a song like this or could I write a song like that? I also tend to, for the most part, write a lot of stuff that probably is more on the, not negative, but I put it this way. In my vast canon of songs, there's not that many you could say are like super happy songs. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
kind of decided like, like this record, it was okay to be happy. It was okay to be joyful sometimes. It was okay to be, sad sometimes. It was okay to be vulnerable, maybe more than I am on my other projects. I kind of decided that I didn't have any to stick to the same rule book that maybe I did with the Streetwalking Cheetahs or any of my stuff, which is tends to be a little bit more aggro, a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more action packed, and this wasn't going to be that.
Yeah, so it
But
was more,
I still wanted people that like my music though to like it. So there
yeah.
is an awareness of like what people that like my bands want to hear or what they enjoy hearing. But I also think my audience is matured too, and that everyone that's listening to like Zeke and the Super Suckers is not like not listening to anything else. You know what I mean? We all have like a big record collection of stuff that we love. You know what I mean? So I kind of assumed my audience was ready for this.
Zeke. You dropped Zeke on us. I love that band. I saw them years ago,
Yeah.
man. Um,
Well, listen, I love Slayer and I love Miles Davis. There's room to love both, you know?
Absolutely. Baby Dynamite, explosive song, feminist tinted love story. What was the creative spark behind writing that song and the intense narrative that went along with it?
The song is written actually about my daughter, and I wrote it. There used to be this restaurant in Long Beach when we lived in Long Beach when she was growing up that we used to go to, and we'd sit at the counter and she would get like pancakes or whatever, and they had this great brunch, and they had this great white wine sangria. So I would have my white wine sangria, and she'd have her orange juice or whatever. And and she started like be kind of getting coming out of her shell and talking, because we would always sit up at the counter talking to the people that work there, and people would be like, oh, and talk, strangers come up, and who's this little girl and all this kind of stuff. And then she took a love of cooking, and she started going in the back with the chef, and he started teaching her how to cook and stuff. And
Wow.
they actually started hiring her when she was like 11 years old to like to be a hostess and wait tables at like events and stuff. And so my kid was getting all this sort of great, like not just like early job exposure, but just kind of like being around adults and kind of taking care of yourself and having to think and be challenged and stuff. And I remember kind of being just thinking like, what a little badass she is. And so I wrote kind of Baby Dynamite like about my daughter, but
Wow.
like the first line of the song, red raspberries are so divine. That's me drinking white wine sangria. So it's like I'm writing it in the context of sitting there having lunch with her at this restaurant, kind of marveling at sort of who she's becoming. Now, that all being said, in the music videos, I didn't know if that necessarily was going to work as a motif for music videos. And so I decided to kind of go in a different direction and do sort of a statement against toxic masculinity and the fact that, women have to walk around and get constantly sort of berated and hit on and approached by guys. And so I made the video like this, gal's watching her band play, which is me and my band, and then goes off to go get some wine, and just relentlessly hit on, and then goes home and grabs a flamethrower and comes back and just sets fire to everyone. And only through the death of those jerks does she meet like Mr. Right, and then they go off at the end. And the video for the new song Blue Radio, which was the one that's kind of inspired by like Taylor Swift, Amy Winehouse, that kind of poppier sound. Although in the end, it still sounds like Cheap Trick, like most of my stuff does. Um, but that's sort of the sequel video to it. So now this couple is a couple, and they're in love, and they go to this carnival and win a little toy blue radio, and that kind of is their thing. And they're always like listening to the radio and listening to music. And then she dies, and he like pines away and is sad and thinking about their love while staring at the blue radio, presumably listening to me sing this song. And then he has this sort of dream vision that she comes back as an angel and says, I don't have to be dead. So he wakes up, plants the blue radio, like, waters it, and she's resurrected, and they again go off into the sunset.
Yeah, I
So I
haven't
thought
seen.
of all.
Yeah, I haven't seen the second one yet, but is it the same
It just
actress?
came out. It's the same actress and the same actor from the end of the first video, the guy who gives her the rose, and the gals who play my band members in the first one appear as angels with me in the dream sequence, and I am like the magician. I'm also singing it and stuff, and we shot it in this crazy carnival set, and it's wild. I mean, both videos were pretty ambitious for what we could pull off.
Okay, I can't believe I can't remember the name of the film. The film that you like, and you played a song, you wrote a song about the film.
Oh, you're talking about the movie Trancers,
The
and
gun.
the song is called Jack Death, and yeah, the funny thing about the gun in the Baby Dynamite video, that is a flamethrower that I bought off Amazon. Like
Wow.
I had this idea of getting a flamethrower, and I was like, man, what do I got? Like, I'm gonna probably have to call a prop house, right? And like, rent a prop like you would for a movie, because I don't necessarily know anyone with a flamethrower. And then I went and looked. I was like, unless, and sure enough, on Amazon, because it's basically meant for like a fire pit. Like if you had a fire pit or a bigger situation than just your barbecue, you might use this thing. Or
Wow.
if you were going to murder somebody, obviously. But sure enough, there was this cool futuristic looking, looks like a laser gun flamethrower on Amazon. So I rented it, used it in the shot, and then returned it and got my money back, because that's Amazon Prime, baby.
I and the connection between the film and that scene, I don't know why it just clicked in my head. It seemed to like there seemed to be a relationship there somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy I direct a lot of music videos for a lot of different artists, and I usually direct all mine. Occasionally, someone's come to me with an idea for one of mine, and I've had them direct it. But I usually direct and edit my own stuff, and I get hired by a lot of other artists to do that. And I think music videos are really fun to
Me too.
do because even if you've got a small budget, even if you, especially, and even better if you've got a not small budget, but it's like fun gonzo filmmaking, you know what I mean? It's sort of like, hey, let's get everyone together and go make a movie, you know what I mean? So I always do a lot of planning and stuff, but I go into it very kind of open-minded for like, ooh, this looks cool. Get a camera on this. And we have a lot of fun. I have kind of a team that I use for these things, whether it's my own or others, and they're just all amazing, and we have a great time doing it. And I've got cast members that I repurpose in different videos. That girl Ashley, who plays, I should say that girl, this actress Ashley, who plays Baby Dynamite and plays the lead in Blue Radio, same character. She's been in like probably 7 music videos that I've shot for myself and other artists,
Nice.
my different bands, because she's just such a great performer and she can kind of look like anything different. She's also a burlesque dancer. You can find her on Instagram as Tatas for now. And she's a fire breather and a contortionist and an actress and does comedy. And it's just like she can do it all. She's incredible. So.
And a little sidebar is I know that you were friends with her because I saw it on Instagram and then in the bio, Sarah Remich. I don't know if that's how you pronounce her name, but I know her as
Yeah.
Sawa from Suicide
Yeah, from
Girls.
Suicide Girls. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've known Sarah forever. I met her when we worked at Fender together. We were both, I was directing content, digital content, and digital tutorial content for Fender, and she was one of our camera ops there. And since then, she and I have worked on tons of projects. Um, sometimes just gigs where I'll get hired as a director or producer to assemble a crew and go shoot some stuff. And she's one of my go-to cinematographers slash camera operators. I mean, she can do it all, so it kind of just depends on the gig. But
She was like
so
your DP,
Sarah,
right? DP on this
yeah,
one?
she's my DP on this one, and I mean, I've used her on small shoots, big shoots. She can wear many hats, but that's essentially what she does. Is she's a freelance DP slash cinematographer. She's a camera op if you need her to be. She knows how to light scenes. She works because she's been on camera with Suicide Girls and on the other side of the camera with Suicide Girls. She's great with working with talent. She's great with working with groups of people. She's great one-on-one. So for someone like me, when you're doing these music videos, it's not like the 80s. We don't have 30-person crews and stuff. It's usually like 4 or 5 people. And so I'm someone that can wear a bunch of different hats. Someone like Sarah can wear a bunch of different hats. You get a handful of people like that, and everyone knows what their job is, but at the same time, they know that like we're all working together and
Yeah.
helping fill in for the fact that we don't have a huge crew. And it's like, man, you'd be amazed how much we get done. It's like just we all kind of know how to fill in the gaps and help each other out, and it's just great, great teamwork.
I've been a fan of hers for a while. I've been following.
Yeah, she's
We've
great.
exchanged messages in the past too.
You should
Songs.
interview her.
I'd
She
love
she
to.
she has a documentary film called Passing Through that's been winning lots of awards, and I'm sure she'd be happy to talk to you about it. And obviously, she and I have worked together on a ton of stuff. And her husband is Curb Killer, a famous skateboarder.
Yeah.
So she's a really interesting person.
Absolutely. There were some really interesting collaborations on the record, and I wanted to talk about these individually with you. I'll just do song by song here. Piece of Me with Cherie Currie. Can you talk about that one for a minute? I know you guys have been known each other for a while, so
Yeah, Cherie is a big influence on the band and me in the sense that the Runaways were one of the first bands I got really kind of obsessed with as a youth. Joan Jett was kind of my gateway drug, like I loved music, but when I heard Joan Jett, I became really obsessed with music. And then that kind of led me to listening to the radio like all the time and realizing that like at night they would play heavier stuff like Zeppelin and Black Sabbath. And then I heard Van Halen, and that kind of is the thing that made me want to play guitar and kind of sent me in the direction more of being a musician. But so certainly the Runaways were a big influence. And when the Streetwalking Cheetahs started, we The reason we're called the Street Walking Cheetahs, we were doing a lot of covers by the Stooges and MC5 and the Runaways and stuff. And so Dino and I went to a Cherie Curry Sandy West show and brought albums for her to sign and told her that we had started this band that did a couple originals, but mainly covers, and that we had learned Cherry Bomb, and that was the first song we ever played together. And hey, we're playing next week if you want to come to the show. And she was like, yeah, maybe I'll come up and sing it with you guys. And we obviously didn't think she was serious, but she did. And she ended up being just a big champion of the band. You know, she was just always say nice things about us and bring us along on interviews. And we were, playing in her band and she was sitting in with us and she would use us on recording sessions. And we did radio interviews with her. And then we ended up recording a single of us backing her up on Cherry Bomb. And then just over the years, I was in her band for a while and we recorded on like benefit things together and done lots of gigs together. So she's someone that over the years has had a big influence on my career as an artist, but also a big hand in helping me out in the early days and maintaining that friendship and that relationship. So it made sense for us to finally to sing like an original song together that we both were involved in writing. Because a lot of times it's been like we do a cover of this, or I'm singing backing vocals on this, or she's singing. It's like this was like we like wrote something together for this purpose. So that was really cool. The other featured vocalists on the record are similar in the sense that they're all people that have like a personal connection to me beyond just being like a musician I enjoy. The Bell Rays, Lisa from the Bell Rays sings a duet with me on the title track. And the Bell Rays were one of the first bands that the Streetwalking Cheetahs ever played with and met early on. We were big fans and friends with them. We used to go to, barbecues at Bob and Lisa's house and stuff back in like the 90s. And she's an amazing artist and an amazing vocalist. And that's another song that we co-wrote with some other musicians. And it was a real personal song. And then Eddie Spaghetti is a guy who I go way back with, but also Eddie and I, in addition to like touring together with the Super Suckers and the Streetwalking Cheetahs, Eddie and I made an album together called Motherfucking Rock and Roll. And that was the first time that I had a record that had my name on it as opposed to a band name like the
Right.
Streetwalking Cheetahs or Trading Aces or James Williamson and the Pink Hearts or whatever. So that was probably that album and that sort of starting the idea of me having an identity as a solo artist, that kind of got the ball rolling there. And Eddie and I did a bunch of gigs together around that time. And when I was playing my set, I would kind of play a handful of my material, some Cheetah stuff, some Trading Aces stuff. So I was sort of like handpicking stuff throughout my career. And he said to me backstage at this gig one time, he's like, man, you got to just go solo at some point. He's like, you've got all these great songs, but they're like scattered across all these different, projects. And then what's the common thread? You. He's like, at some point, you just got to go out and just be like, I'm the guy that does these songs. Here's my record, and then
So
play
he
whatever
put
the
the
fuck you
idea in your
want.
head.
Yeah, he kind of planted the seed that would make sense at this point. And I like Eddie a lot, and he always, Eddie's a guy who if he has something to say, it's usually a pretty smart thing.
Yeah, just going back to Lisa for a second, she's been on my show, and the Bell Rays are one of those bands that everyone loves. And I was so happy that they did that national tour with Social D. It was such a good thing for them after all the years of hard work they've put in, you know. Um,
Yeah.
You mentioned that Living Between the Lines is your Tom, you said Tom Petty, like your Tom Petty album. How do you see yourself balancing that high energy rock and roll of your past with this bluesy, soulful direction? And do you think this is going to be a direction that you will go in more along with your punk rock, or is this a one-time kind of deal?
No, I think I mean I've always done material like this. I had a band called Highway 61
Oh
that
yeah.
was an early band of mine in the 90s, but we made a record a couple years ago. And that album definitely shows that bluesier side to me. But like I said, those songs were all written in the 90s. I've always done this sort of this side of me has always been there, but it's just not the one that you know, kind of carved my identity the way that the Cheetahs. Most people know me from playing punk rock and playing kind of heavier music. I've always done this, but that's kind of just where my success was doing that high energy, punk and metal and all that stuff. And I'll always do that because that's a big part of who I am. I still do it now in multiple bands. I'm currently playing in six different simultaneous bands.
Oh
It's
my God.
Fear, Fear, Range War, Handsome Dick Manitoba, Streetwalking Cheetahs, Trading Aces, and the solo album. And they're all touring this year. And so the way I see it is that with this music for me is not a huge departure because, like I said, I've kind of always done it. Sweet Justice is another band I had over the years that put out a few records, and that was definitely on the bluesier, rootsier side. So it's like I've
Yeah.
always been doing this. Um, I think for me, what I like about this is that I can now go out and tour whenever I want, wherever I want, regardless of whether a band is available to do it or not. So if the Cheetahs are taking a break from touring or not wanting to go to Europe or just, because we've all got jobs and well, they all, not me. This is my job now. But stuff where you can't just pack up and leave and do a 6 week long tour. But if I want to do it, then I can now go out as a solo artist and just assemble whatever band I want to back me up and or go out acoustic and solo and play whatever I want from any, just play material that I've written and not be confined to it being any one band, even though I love all those bands. But like I said, I think as an artist, once I started doing these kind of like sideman gigs like Fear and Handsome Dick Manitoba, where I'm going and playing other people's material, I kind of realized that I want to be to the point where I can just travel the world and play music and be able to do that however I want. And if my different bands that I'm either a sideman with or am a band member of are either not active at the moment or not available or have other plans, then I can just go out on my own, do my own thing.
Now I know you
And
mentioned,
also and then this will have its own sound and its own
yeah.
identity, and hopefully kind of find a bit of its own audience as well, and just add to the overall kind of portfolio of what I do.
I mean, I know you mentioned you have the things with Fear and Dick Manitoba coming up. Do you have a plan to do any touring as a solo artist?
Yeah, we've got a 2 week tour of Spain booked in. It starts at the end of May and goes into June, and then I'm coming back from that and doing some Southern California dates, and then I'm looking at trying to do a fall tour that'll get me like out east in Texas and stuff. Meaning I don't know if it'll be a full scale U.S. tour or like kind of hitting some handful of pockets, but I'd like to get out and do the solo stuff for more of the United States than just the West Coast. But right now I've got Spain booked and a West Coast tour and build off that. And that's in addition to the Cheetahs are going to the UK in June. I'm going to Spain with Handsome Dick Manitoba in early May. Um, I'm doing fear dates throughout the year and starting next week doing a Midwest tour with Handsome Dick Manitoba. And I've got fear dates this weekend. So at this point, it's just tour, 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 and
So
tour.
you're a
Be
full
careful
on,
what you ask
yeah,
for.
right. So you're a full-on member of Fear now, basically.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, I am a full-blown member of Fear. I'm on the new album. If you go and see Fear, I'm playing guitar in the band. There's two guitar players now. Lee used to play guitar, and then they had Philo Kramer or whoever was fulfilling that role of the Stratocaster whammy bar lead guitar, because that's a big part of Fear. When I joined the band, a gentleman named Eric Razzo, great guitar player, plays in a band called The Henchman. He had already been in Fear as the guitarist. And Lee had kind of transitioned from still playing guitar to not playing guitar anymore because it's a lot. Those songs are difficult. And to be up there playing all the guitar and singing, it's a lot. At some point, he was just like, enough. I got to just get up there and sing. I don't need to be bashing out every song on rhythm guitar. So they eventually brought me in to kind of cover what Lee would have been doing. So like the rhythm guitar parts. So now Fear is a five-piece band with the two guitars, and Lee gets plays harmonica as well. So he gets up there and sings and does the harp and stuff. And but you know, that being said, and it's Spit Sticks from Fear is on drums, so two original members. But that being said, I mean it's Lee's band. So I mean, yes, I'm a band member, but I mean I'm a band member of a
Yeah.
band that has a history that goes way deeper than my participation. So it always kind of goes back to like it's the band Fear is whatever leaving and the powers involved with leaving decide Fear is. And I'm just sort of thrilled to be in the mix. They seem to like me. I do all the stuff with them now. I got to go into the studio, into Dave Grohl's 606 studio, which is essentially what sound, it's all the Sound City gear,
Yeah.
including the Neve board
Oh,
that Fear recorded the record, their famous debut album. They recorded it on that board. So we were recording our album. It's called The Last Time. It's out right now. And we recorded that on the same gear and everything. And the Foo Fighters guys were all stopping in and saying hello, and
that's
you know,
exciting.
it was very cool. Yeah.
I didn't
So yeah,
realize.
like I said, like
Yeah.
I'm just stoked to be in the mix.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I didn't realize Fear was recorded at Sound City, but it makes sense
That
because,
yeah, that album. I don't think they did more beer there, but I think the one that's called The Record, that
yeah,
was Sound City. Yeah.
with I Love Living in the City and all the hit, a lot of hit songs on that record.
Yeah, I think they had done some demos and stuff before that. There's other recordings that precede that, but that's their official album that came out. And I believe that was done at Sound City. Everyone was freaking out that we were on the same board. And it's one of those famous Neve boards, they call
Who
it. And
recorded
it's
the session?
the original session or
No,
our
your
session?
session.
There's a guy named oh shoot, I'm spacing on his name right now. He's kind of the house engineer at oh, it's Lou, Big Lou. Hold on, I'll tell you right now. I'm gonna look his name up because I
I
feel
didn't mean to
terrible.
put
I'm
you on the
spacing.
spot. I was just curious who the engineer was.
This guy named Lou, we were calling him Big Lou. And oh, it's Lou, John Lusto is his name. He goes by Lou. John Lusto is his name. He also plays drums and plays all over the new Range War record, which is Lee's country band that I play guitar in. John plays drums on most of that stuff, and he's kind of like the house engineer and producer at 606, unless you bring in, you know, your own people or whatever. And he's
Just
great.
one other thing about the tour. You said you got these tour dates booked for yourself too. Did you? I know you have a lot of musicians to pick from, but do you have a band in place, or are you just gonna like put it together when you get out there before you go? I mean,
I No, I have a band in place. So in Europe, I started a band called Trading Aces, and
yeah.
it's essentially members of the band Warrior Soul and members of the UK band The City Kids. And our drummer is based in Spain. His name is Ivan Tambak. And so usually what I do if I'm doing a Spain tour is Ivan is on drums. And he comes out, you know, I go, you know, basically I go to his town and we kind of all meet up there. He's got a studio, we can rehearse there, and then we head out on tour from there. So for this tour, he'll be on drums. A guy named Christian Kimmett, who plays bass with Warrior Soul and Love Hate. He will be on bass. A guy named Osmondo Carvona. I'm Ozzy Carbona will be on bass and not bass on guitar and keyboards. He's actually a Fender instructor, and I met him when I was at Fender, and he's a multi-instrumentalist. So he's gonna go between guitar and keyboards, and then I'll be playing guitar and singing lead vocals.
This is great, man. I love this multifaceted life you're leading, man. It's very exciting.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Frank. It's always fun talking to you, and you're always welcome. Come on the show,
Thanks,
man.
man. Yeah, appreciate it, man. It's always a good time. I appreciate your support and letting me you know, talk about my various projects and stuff. So yeah, this year I'll just be on the road. So you can check my Instagram, the Frank Meyer. Most all my social media stuff's just the Frank Meyer, Meyer, like Oscar Mayer. Believe me, I have two hot dog references in my name, Frankfurter Oscar Mayer. So I get a lot of hot dog related humor around me. It's terrific. Uh, but so you can kind of catch up with me there. But I'm touring with all these different acts. So if you hear that I'm in town, Everyone, come on down and say hello. We'll drink a beer together.
Thanks a lot, Frank.
Right on. Take it easy, buddy.